Hi everyone, welcome to week number 4. We're in the middle of the semester now, and we are ready to learn about some metabolism, aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and some photosynthesis. And this week's announcements will be a little bit longer because at the end of this, I'm going to try to go through a little bit, just an overview of aerobic and anaerobic respiration and also photosynthesis. To give you a clearer idea of what these processes are. So let's jump right in. Last week we learned all about bacteria, antibiotic resistance, cell structures, some really important basics of biology, also classification of organisms, and that's terribly important because that explains to us different relationships between organisms, how they're classified. So for this week, you have 3 chapters to read, chapters 6, 7, and 8, and they are in unit number 2 in the textbook. I encourage you to use the textbook that we have, the OpenStax textbook. I know that it's kind of easy just to Google this information, but if you read our textbook, which is free, then we're all on the same page as we're talking about these processes. So read the 3 chapters, 6, 7, and 8. They're not that long. Take a look at the Module 4 overview. The slides for that are excellent. I encourage you to read those thoroughly and watch the videos. There's an important video about CO2 and the ocean and what the consequences are of more CO2 being dumped into the ocean. So that was interesting. Your discussion board postings this week have to do with a comparison between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And the question is, are they opposite processes or biochemical pathways? Are they complementary or are they both? And I'll give you a hint. They're both. So just so you know, as you think through those, that would be how you should explain it, because they are opposite, they are complementary, but that means they're both. You'll also be answering questions about autotrophs and whether you consider them the foundation of ecosystems. So autotroph means self-feeders, and these would be the organisms that do photosynthesis. So they make their own food. They don't consume other organisms for food. So are autotrophs the foundation of ecosystems? Your journal entry is all about aerobic versus anaerobic respiration processes. That's why the end of this set of announcements will be helpful to you. And you'll discuss how ancient glycolysis is. Glycolysis is the very first pathway where glucose is being broken down. So take a look at that. And biofuels, what are they? So that will be your journal entry. Make sure, once again, that you label everything, that you answer the questions that the journal entry requires. So be sure and do that. You'll also be working on the 3rd section of your final project. You did the first 2 last week. So this is considered milestone 2. It is extremely important to look at the guidelines and follow the guidelines. You are once again outlining. But remember, this is more of a descriptive outline. It's not just a few words. 1, deforestation. A, under that, removal of trees. No, you have to explain the sections. So that is milestone 2 of your final project. So you're delving deeper into your subject now. Make sure that you use resources out there. The Shapiro Library has some. Of course, there are internet resources also, and books. So make sure you use lots of resources that are out there for you. All right, let's get started in a review of some of the information that's coming up this week. So, life consists of a series of chemical reactions. That's how life works. Chemical reactions happen, and that's what moves life forward. And some of these chemical reactions that occur produce energy. All the chemical reactions in an organism are called metabolism. So metabolism equals all the chemical reactions in an organism. The energy that's produced by metabolism is in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This molecule contributes energy to enzymes that cause work to happen in cells. Here's a picture of an ATP molecule, and what's so important about ATP is these high energy bonds that hold the phosphate groups onto the molecule. There's one, there's another one. As these high energy bonds are broken, the energy is released, and that energy can be transferred to enzymes to do work, to carry out chemical reactions in cells. This is a picture of an enzyme. I just used the enzyme amylase. Amylase breaks down starch, and it doesn't look like a whole heck of a lot. And this is why enzymes are called globular proteins, because basically they look like globs. But enzymes are proteins that do work. Well, most enzymes are proteins. They're proteins that do work, and so they make or break chemical bonds. They do the work to carry out all of the chemistry in cells. Enzymes have very specific jobs to do. They'll have one and only one chemical reaction to do in a cell. There are thousands of enzymes per cell, no matter what cell it is. They run chemical reactions just like I explained. And the code for making all the enzymes that cells need are found in the DNA. And that's why DNA is so important, because the DNA determines the enzymes that are produced by a cell, and the enzymes determine the chemical reactions that take place. All right, aerobic respiration is a process where glucose is broken down to produce ATP. Where does it happen? It happens in mitochondria and the eukaryotic cells, and it happens at the plasma membrane in bacteria. It begins with glycolysis, as does fermentation and anaerobic respiration. And as glucose is broken down, many different energy molecules are produced. Some of those are ATP molecules, but some of them are not. And so NADH and FADH2 have to be converted to ATP. And this is the reason that the electron transport chain occurs, because the energy is stripped away from other energy molecules, and that energy is transferred and made into ATP molecules through something called chemiosmosis. All right, then we have fermentation and anaerobic respiration, and these both occur without oxygen. Oh, I forgot to say. So with aerobic respiration, oxygen is required in order to make all those ATPs. These processes both begin with glycolysis. Once again, they occur without oxygen. This results in slower growth because you make far less ATPs. And you have many different waste products from aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, you make CO2 and water as the waste products. In fermentation and anaerobic respiration, you can make things like alcohols and acids and gases of all different sorts. All right, then a quick review of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis, what is it? It's a set of biochemical pathways where sunlight energy is converted into glucose. Glucose, the most universal food source. The purpose of it is to produce food using light energy, and that's the light energy of sun. And that food is glucose. Photosynthesis is divided into two sets of reactions. The first is called the light-dependent reactions, and that means that these reactions depend on sunlight being present. So what happens in the light-dependent reactions? Pigments are used to pick up that sunlight energy and produce energy molecules. So pigments such as the chlorophylls and the accessory pigments like The carotenoids, like carotene, are used to pick up sunlight energy and to make energy molecules. So the whole purpose of the light-dependent reactions is to make a whole bunch of energy molecules. Then you have the Calvin cycle. So the Calvin cycle is where glucose is actually made, but it takes a lot of energy to make one glucose molecule from 6 carbon dioxide molecules. That's why we have to have the light-dependent reactions. So the Calvin cycle is where the glucose is made from CO2 molecules, and the waste product of the Calvin cycle is oxygen gas. All right, I hope this helps you a bit this week, and as always, if you have any questions, any problems whatsoever, please email me. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you. I can explain things. I can send you to different resources. So please, please, please use me as a resource. And I hope you have a wonderful week this week.